Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk with Ben podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're tuned in. I hope you had an amazing week. I know my week has been absolutely crazy, catching up on things that I had to get done, but also kind of prepping and doing recording videos and things like that for the coming weeks, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But I'm so glad you're here. And if you're new, my name is Ben, and this is my podcast where I talk about life. I talk about work. I talk about things that God puts on my heart. And hopefully God is glorified through this, and hopefully you are encouraged. Hopefully you take away something from this. And so I hope that you stick around for many episodes to come, and hopefully you are encouraged today as we just talk about life and talk about this past year. So with that, let's jump into it. But before I even begin, before I even talk about what I want to decide to talk about today, I simply just wanted to say thank you. As I kind of said in the intro there, this is the last episode for a while, at least for the next about 2.5 weeks, mainly because I am going away for a break. I'm going away from campus, from work, and spending time with friends, spending time with Rebecca, and really just enjoying the holidays. But more importantly, just kind of, I don't know, revamping myself, kind of rejuvenating. That's the word, rejuvenating myself, trying to get a better focus on what I really want to do with the Bowden experience as a whole. But, this podcast, it gets kind of tiring, and sometimes you need to hit the reset button. And so maybe with 2021, I'll be able to reset some things. And I really want to kind of relook at the Bowden experience. And that's going to be more for the first episode after the new year. So that's going to be kind of what that is about. But today is about this past year, and it's simply really a thank you to you guys. And I'll get in more of that here in a second. But again, just so you know that I am so appreciative of everything that you guys have done for me. And I'm not just talking about the podcast. For many of you, you probably support me either by prayer or financially here in Word of Life as a missionary. But you guys also are just such an encouragement as friends. And so I just wanted to say thank you before I get into anything. And so how can we look at this past year? I've been thinking about what would I talk about the last episode before the new year, before Christmas. I could easily talk about Christmas, which I'll probably say something at the end. I could talk about the new year, which is probably what I'm going to be talking about the first episode back. But I still think that I could talk about the year itself. I still think I could talk about what this year has done for me and what it's done for us. Again, it's been a crazy year. I just think about how the year began back at the beginning of 2020. For me, it was simply just doing what I normally do. I was finishing up school. I started subbing kind of full time for a while until I came here, and then COVID-19 hit. And it affected us all when I got here. Things changed, and I went into more of that last couple of weeks, so I don't really want to get into that portion. What I really want to talk about is YouTube and podcast. And, I talked about media previously on this podcast. I've talked about the impact media has had on my life. And again, I just want to say thank you. And, you can have a podcast, you can have videos, you can do so many things with media, but if no one watches them, if no one listens, it's kind of hard to reach people. And, I get a lot of times, many people over this past year, and I still get it, like, Ben, you don't get a ton of views on a lot of videos or maybe a ton of listens on many podcast episodes. And I wouldn't say that they're wrong. I mean, my most viewed video, by the way, passed 1,000 views, and it's been out on the internet for over a year. And I'm nowhere near that with most of my videos. But that's not the purpose that I do it. And to kind of go back, the whole actually podcast thing, and video thing. I mean, as you guys know, my story on my YouTube, reason I started it and how it kind of disappeared for a while, and then I came back and doing it, and that's just been really just an amazing journey. It's to be honest, if I don't start YouTube, I'm not doing the job I'm doing now for Word of Life, which is video editing and recording and so many different things, it's allowing me to have the opportunity to share the gospel. And so I really want to focus on podcasts because really it's about a year ago today, or not really today, but a year ago in this month of Christmas and stuff, is when Jared and I, my brother, decided we wanted to start a podcast. Actually, he didn't really decide. I was like, "Hey, dude, this would be a great opportunity. It'd be fun." And so the Bros Know podcast kind of came about, and we started in early January, and it only lasted about 10 episodes before I came here, but it was awesome. I absolutely loved it. The reason why I bring that up is because that was the start of me going, wow, I miss radio. I love doing this podcast. Let's create something. Let's take the Bowden Experience brand per se and let's expand it. And I sometimes I get laughed at by the people that say my podcast and my YouTube, it's not really a brand. I don't make money on it. It's not really a business, and how successful can it be? And, I look at them and I just kind of say, you know what, this is my dream. My dream has always been to do something that I love. I felt for a while I was kind of in this weird limbo of, I want to teach, but I want to do more. I want to do more with my life. And doing podcasts and actually really expanding this YouTube to including the podcast, to doing Friday recaps, to doing videos here and there, conversations about race, to prayer videos, to all these different things over this past year. Even through the COVID pandemic, I was able to expand the things that I love to include things I didn't expect to do, like having conversations with people on my podcast that just brings joy. Behind the Lens, hopefully it's going to be starting back up in January, but that was another video on YouTube that I did that I didn't even think I would ever do, but it was just a friend of mine and myself. We love cameras. We love the idea of doing videography and photography, and said, why not? Why not do this? Why not start this? And that for me was really when it started to really make sense to me as I'm looking back on this year. I didn't ever expect that, as a missionary, I'd be doing video editing. I always thought as a missionary, and this is really another point that I want to make about this past year is I talked about this I think it was last week or the week before, talking about how God has a plan and sometimes we don't expect it. And this is it, becoming a missionary was, I don't know if I expected it over a year ago, but obviously this was happening. But it's so cool how God, weaves the web to include things that we love in order to glorify him. And for me, being able to serve here has been an honor and a privilege. It's been a rough year for many of us here, but let's be honest, for everyone around the world. And it's been a year where you learn what it means to serve in ways you don't expect. And for me, I had an idea, I had a plan, but God changes them. So as I look back at this year of learning and growing, as I look back at 2020 and ask the question of would I change anything? In reality, I really wouldn't. I mean, I wish there wasn't a pandemic, but through the pandemic, I learned so much about how I can expand the brand of the Bowden Experience. How can I add certain things? How can I grow? And I say that, I said earlier on, especially in the intro, how I needed to take a break, how I needed to refocus and re-look at things. And it's not a bad thing. And I'm not saying that I've grown tired of doing this, but I think when you're constantly working for Word of Life, and when I'm trying to make videos, trying to make things, there's a little bit of the flavor, I would say, that is missing. I feel like at times Ben Bowden hasn't truly been Ben Bowden because I've been so worried about getting podcast episodes out and Friday recaps that I haven't been able to do those fun videos that, I got to do in the summer of 2019 when I was working on campus, and all those fun videos, sit down Saturdays, real life Thursdays, try not to laugh challenges, travel vlogs, and just having fun. And I even in the Bowden Experience kind of theme of everything, it's just faith, family, fun. And I feel like faith and family have always been there. And that's really what this past year has really shown me. But I missed the fun aspect. And so there's cool ideas actually that my girlfriend, Rebecca, has come up with for my YouTube. So if you want to head over there to my YouTube, or if you're watching on YouTube right now, then just stay tuned on YouTube and you can subscribe there. But I'm getting back into maybe a little bit of the Ben that I always was. And I think sometimes when you get into a ministry mindset, I sometimes forget about having fun. And so, yeah, and this might seem like all this is scatterbrained. It's not. I have a purpose behind all of this, all the things I'm talking about in the episode. But I think really, and I'm just going to say this, all of this that I said, COVID-19, how it's affected us. The podcast of my brother's podcast and mine, to my own podcast, to YouTube, to becoming a missionary, it all comes around in a circle. And that's simply this. It could have been very easy for me as COVID-19 hit, even as we were leading up to me becoming a missionary, and it could have been really easy for me to focus on maybe the negative that was happening or the unknown. But the biggest lesson that I think I learned of 2020 is that just because God changes what is going on, just because there is a change in what is going on, God doesn't change who he is. God just opens up new doors. I always think it's interesting the fact that if COVID-19 doesn't happen, I'm not creating videos for Real Life Hungry. I'm not creating new content that I feel could be very successful. If without COVID-19, I don't ever meet Rebecca, she would have never came to Real Life Hungry. We would have never met. Without COVID-19, I wouldn't have the extra maybe flexibility of time to create extra series on my YouTube, to have better conversations with friends. Without COVID-19, I think there's a lot about becoming a missionary that would become complacent. That would just become a thing I do every single day. And so in a weird way, because of COVID-19 and because of what's happened in 2020, because of everything that's happened in the States, everything that's happened here, it all impacts each other. And like I said, God was weaving a web that revolves around him, that shows him his glory, but then ultimately teaches me things about myself that I did not expect. I've learned that I'm a little bit more of talented at doing video editing than I realized. I'm a little more confident. I'm a little bit more, I guess I'm a little more flexible of doing things that need to happen in order to successfully not just make videos, but to be a missionary. And so as we look back on the year 2020, as you go into the Christmas time, as I said during, I think, my Thanksgiving episode, I said that it's sometimes hard to look at Thanksgiving and be thankful because of everything that's going on. But in reality, I think it's sometimes, sometimes it's a little easier to see the things you can be thankful for when things aren't necessarily what you expected. And I believe that is the year of 2020. I think many of us, many people are going to be telling us that 2020 sucked. 2020 was the worst year ever. And maybe earthly, and maybe for us, maybe. But sometimes I have to look at what maybe other people experienced. Look at my grandparents, my great-grandparents. We look at so many people that suffered through probably a lot more than maybe a pandemic. But ultimately, we look at Jesus Christ. God sent his son to die on the cross for us. Not to sugarcoat anything that people have done, but heck, it's nothing compared to what God sent his son to do, which is to die for our sins. I look at this world in 2020 and I just see this very lost world. I see my own country struggling. And I believe God is saying, hey, find me, seek me. So after everything I just said I've learned in 2020, after everything I just said in that 2020 has taught me and how I am so thankful. I still need to seek God. And I think all of us need to seek God. We can't do this alone, especially in a time when you can be lonely, in a time when it can feel empty. I'm spending Christmas. Yeah, I'll be with my girlfriend. Yeah, I'll be with her family and friends. But I miss my family. It can be a lonely time. But when you have God as your focus, I believe it brings so much joy to all of our hearts. So as I round up this, talking about this past year, and I think most people would do this on December 31st, but obviously I'm taking a break away from I guess making consistent episodes. But what I do want to say is that I am extremely thankful for you all that watch these podcast episodes, that listen on Spotify or on Apple Podcast. Because no matter if it's 10 people, if it's 25 people, or if it's 100, or if it's 100,000 people, my mentality will remain the same. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm never going to try to make this about Ben as much as I can, as much as I try to. Because the ultimate goal is to glorify God. And whether that's through joy and entertainment and goofiness, or through my stupidity, or if that's just a very honest conversation with someone about race, or whether that's talking about cameras, or whether that's talking about my recap of my week or the journey I've had as being a missionary. No matter what, no matter when, my hope is that you can get the encouragement of Christ and the encouragement that God only gives us. And so I really, truly want to say thank you. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for always supporting me. When there's been one viewer, or when there's been 100 viewers or 100 listeners, you've always just encouraged me. You've always pushed me. You've always wanted me to change my ideas, maybe not change my ideas, but challenge my ideas and help me speak them clear. And that truly, truly means a lot. And so as we look into 2021, as we look through this holiday season, as well as I would like to say, I hope you do have an amazing holiday season. I hope you spend it well with family and friends. And if you are alone, know that you're not alone, that God is there. But as we look into 2021, as we look into the future of the Bowden Experience, as we look in the future of this podcast, the first episode will be coming back in 2021. The first episode of 2021 will be happening hopefully as soon as I get back. Most likely I will be quarantining for about 10 days here, just because I'll be traveling a lot throughout the country. And in order to keep everyone safe, I'll be quarantining. So I'll have time to think of podcast episodes and things like that. So that is going to be coming out in the beginning of 2021. Who knows? I might record one while I'm on break. I'll probably won't release that until the beginning of 2021 at some point, but who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. As far as the Bowden Experience, I will probably not be making a Friday recap this week. If you're not listening to this, which doesn't matter if you're not listening to this because you're not listening to this, I'll be posting that on the Bowden Experience page. That I probably won't be having a Friday recap just because of a lot of the traveling and stuff and dealing with certain things. There's a lot that's got to be done. So with that, though, there will be a lot of videos hopefully coming out throughout break. I'll be having a Merry Christmas one. I'll be having Rebecca has some other fun ones planned. I have no idea what they're all going to entail. I just know she has some ideas and she's told me and I've agreed to it. Will I regret it? Who knows? But those are going to be fun. Give a little bit of fun back into the Bowden Experience and hopefully just enjoy the holiday season. And so with that, I just want to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. And I want to wish you all a Happy New Year. Hopefully 2021 maybe is a little bit better for you if 2020 wasn't as great. And I really do want to encourage you to take this time, these holidays, to maybe take a break away from certain things and focus on family. Time with family is not given every single day. It can be taken away very, very quickly. So spend it wisely. And so once again, I want to say that if you've loved this episode of the podcast, if you loved watching it, or if you loved listening to it, go ahead and really like it. Put it on your favorites page on Apple Podcasts. Follow it on Spotify. And as well as on YouTube, if you've enjoyed watching it, click that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. The more you hit that like button, the more that you subscribe to, the more you can only do it once. But if you hit that like button, if you hit that subscribe button, that allows me to get these videos out. That allows me to have more of an effect on people that might need some encouragement, especially through this holiday season. So if you could do that and also share it, maybe people can get some encouragement from what they see in my life. Hopefully will glorify God as well. So once again, I want to remind you of this, that we serve an amazing God, that he is faithful and we can trust him. And as always, we'll talk next time.